It is unfortunately that time of year when football programs send out press releases that have photos of helmets or stadiums on them. And usually what that means is they're firing the coach. So helmet photo from UCLA on Sunday, stadium photo from Virginia Tech. They are firing Brent Pry, which we knew was coming. If you watched the Old Dominion game, there was no doubt that this was over. This is a once proud program that just could never get off the ground under Brent Pry. You kind of had the feeling when their offensive coordinator left to go become Ohio State's offensive line coach, they fired their defensive coordinator and had to fill those positions heading into a critical year, that Brent Pry was on borrowed time. And now he's done. Philip Montgomery, former Tulsa head coach, will be the interim coach the rest of the season. And Virginia Tech will try to pick up the pieces. But this was a disaster, pretty much. And the thing is, Virginia Tech's in a really different place than it was under Frank Beamer, for sure, but also probably than it was when it fired Justin Fuente. I think it was headed to that place, and I think people within the business understood that. But this really drove it home. And, you know, to understand where Virginia Tech's at, you really need to understand what their athletic director, Whit Babcock, said to their board over the summer. Basically, Virginia Tech is very far behind everybody else in the ACC in terms of resources and spending. So when you look at this job and you think, oh, I remember them playing in the national title game with Mike Vick. Okay, that was 26 years ago. I remember Frank Beamer winning 9 games a year and dominating in the early days of them in the ACC. Okay, that was about 20 years ago. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. The last time they were really in it was Fuente's first year they went to the ACC championship game. And then it sort of fell apart after that. But let's look at what Whit Babcock showed his board. And it's pretty interesting. So you see the operating budgets in the ACC. Virginia Tech is highlighted in orange. There are 4 private schools below them. We are probably assuming that those would be Duke, Boston College, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Stanford. Maybe one of those is not in that group. One of those is spending more. But that's where Virginia Tech is. It's below all the public schools in the ACC, far below Notre Dame, which, while a football independent, they're a member of the ACC and the other sports. So you see their dollar figures up the top. Very different universe. So if you're thinking this is one of the better jobs in the league, coaches who are looking at it are not going to think that way because they're going to look at stuff like this. This is another slide that Whit Babcock showed his board. I like to call it the same, but with different schools on it. It's only the public schools, showing that Virginia Tech is dead last. Here's another one showing Virginia Tech against probably the schools that its fan base would like to think are its peers in the ACC, but are definitely not. Far below spending for Clemson and Florida State and North Carolina. And until that changes, and that's what Babcock was trying to do with the board, he was trying to get approval to raise student fees, do a lot of other things to try to get university side support for athletics to get them closer to that number. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, and they certainly aren't going to be able to promise that between now and when they hire the next coach. Or they may promise it, but they won't be able to guarantee it. And so that is going to limit the pool. That's going to limit the pool. Virginia Tech opens the same day as UCLA. They're kind of fishing from the same pond, although one is on the East Coast, one is on the West Coast. It's probably a different set of coaches. But what Virginia Tech is going to be looking for, you're going to want a really accomplished group of 5 head coach. You're going to want a hot power conference coordinator who just wants to be a power conference head coach and show they can do it. That might actually be the best bet there. But there's going to be a lot of names thrown out. Obviously, Mike Vick's name will get thrown out. He's coaching at Norfolk State now. And I think that's probably the idea was if he could show at Norfolk State that he could be a good head coach, that maybe he could come take over his alma mater someday. He's only 3 games in. He's 1-2. I don't think he would be ready yet, but I'm sure they're gonna think about it. They probably call Shane Beamer at South Carolina. He's Frank Beamer's son. He's an alum, but he has a much better job. South Carolina is paying him a ton of money. Now, obviously, the expectations are high there, but he just got an extension. He's very safe there, and he's very well compensated there. Ryan Silverfield at Memphis would be a great hire, but here you may run into the weird stumbling block that happens in college football searches where you say, well, we hired Memphis's coach once and it didn't work. Ryan Silverfield and Justin Fuente could not be any different. They are not alike at all. And if you'd hired Mike Norvell, who also was a Memphis coach between Justin Fuente and Ryan Silverfield, he also would have done a better job than Justin Fuente. So it doesn't really matter, but it will matter to some people. So they'll say, oh, you can't do this. Pete Nakos and I talked about some other candidates. One that an agent brought up to me that I thought was pretty interesting would be Jeff Monken at Army. And I would also throw Brian Newberry at Navy into this, because it may be that Virginia Tech, if it is not going to resource the program at a level that is commensurate with what Clemson does and what Florida State does and what other ACC schools that really want to win do, you're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to recruit different kinds of players. You're going to have to run a different kind of offense. You're going to have to become the changeup. So Jeff Monken at Army is an expert on that. Brian Newberry at Navy is an expert on that. But you also could go other group of five route. Alex Golesh at USF. Obviously, we've talked a lot about him in the last few weeks because the Bulls went and beat Florida in Gainesville. They beat Boise State early in the season. And I will say, the first 2 years of Alex Golesh at USF, 7-6 both years, that is a massive improvement over where that program was. You may say, oh, that's not that great. Compared to where they were, it is a huge improvement. It looks like USF is going to be quite a bit better this year than it was the last 2 years. Another guy that his name's popped up is Jamie Chadwell at Liberty. This is someone Virginia Tech reached out to before they hired Brent Pry when he was at Coastal Carolina. The difference is Jamie Chadwell is not nearly in as good a spot as he was before. He went undefeated at Liberty in that first season, went to the Fiesta Bowl, but things have not gone well since, and I don't know that he'd be on the list this time. Will Stein, the Oregon offensive coordinator, I think is a really interesting name. I think he's going to get a job this year. I think this cycle he will get a head coaching job, and he is one of those people who is not geographically dependent. So he works on the West Coast now. He's from Louisville. He played for Louisville, so he's understands one of the ACC schools for sure. But he also worked at Texas. He worked at UTSA. He's been around a lot of different people, a lot of different programs, and he's viewed as one of the most creative play callers in the game. And he's the type of guy that if you meet him, if you talk to him, he's got the personality where he's going to be a really good recruiter. And I imagine has learned a lot from Dan Lanning about running a program. So that would be one to watch. Tyson Helton at Western Kentucky. This is one Pete Nakos put on his list of potential Virginia Tech targets. I like this one a lot. If you look at who's been able to find and then replace once they lose them, talented coordinators and talented coaches, Tyson Helton's at the top of the list. He's done a really good job when he gets a guy. So he gets Zach Kitley, who brings Bailey Zappi to Western Kentucky. Kitley goes and becomes the OC at Texas Tech, and now he's the head coach at FAU. Well, Kitley had brought this youngster named Ben Arbuckle. Ben Arbuckle then is the OC at Western Kentucky, then becomes the OC at Washington State. He's now the OC at Oklahoma and is probably going to be on some of these lists. So it's very interesting to see how this goes. But I love the idea of a coach who's able to do that, because here's the thing about Virginia Tech being a program of not great resources relative to its league. You'd better be able to replace good assistants when they leave, because every time they're good at your place, they're going to leave. So here's another one. Buster Faulkner, the OC at Georgia Tech. He's been phenomenal. He's long been viewed as a future head coach, running one of the best, most creative offenses in college football that defensive coordinators hate to play. He's worked under Kirby Smart, understands how these things work. He's working under Brent Key right now at a program that probably felt at the end of the Jeff Collins era about like Virginia Tech feels now. I would say those are pretty similar. Now, Georgia Tech administratively has done some things that have improved the situation there quite a bit over the last few years, but that is what Virginia Tech is also trying to do. So that would be an interesting hire. And if you could actually get Brent Key to tell you how he did it at Georgia Tech, that would be pretty critical because that's exactly what Virginia Tech is trying to do. Well, guess what? Buster Faulkner's been there the whole time. He knows what they did. I'll throw one more out there, though, because it is that season. It's groomer season. Nothing more fun back in the day than when Tennessee fans would go crazy when their job opened and pine for Jon Gruden, who they believed was the one who could come and save their program. Now, I don't know that Jon Gruden is ready to be a college football head coach. I know he wants to be a college football head coach. He wants to get back in the game. He's not going to get an NFL job. But man, how much fun would it be? The fans would enjoy this one. And hey, somebody got a cameo in August where Gruden kind of laid this out there.
I don't want to start any rumors or speculation, but everybody that knows me knows I love football, all levels of football. So you hang in there at the Hokies, man. And I'm down here in Tampa. Anything happens down the road, people know where to find me.
Something happened down the road. One of my favorite groomers ever. This is the search that landed Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee, I believe. The groomer of that particular day, and someone called me about this and explained it to me. And the person I'm assuming on the other end of the phone had a straight face as they explained it, though I was laughing maniacally. That Jon Gruden was in a private jet circling above McGee-Tyson Airport in lovely Alcoa, Tennessee. And that he was just waiting for the go-ahead to come down and sign his contract and emerge like a butterfly coming out of the chrysalis as the Tennessee head coach. That obviously was not true. Virginia Tech fans, I am relying on you, if for nothing else than my own entertainment this season, to cook up the best groomers you can before you guys hire a really hot power conference coordinator as your next head coach. Can you do that for me?